What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Planet Soccer Show here on YouTube. I'm Reed. That's Dylan. I'm in my sister's former dance room, as you can probably tell by the pink walls. There's a big mirror back there behind me, so I've kind of angled myself so you're not looking at my ring light setup and all that. Today we've got a Week 3 Premier League roundup, and we're going
Yeehaw!
Yeehaw! Yeah. Sure. Yeehaw. Throw it in there. We're going to talk about a few games. I have 3 games that I think really mattered this week. I know Dylan's got a few extra points on some other matches, but we're going to get right into it, and we're going to talk about the Newcastle-Liverpool game, the Darwin Núñez game, and Dylan, as you can tell, was very upset by this. We were supposed to record this last night. We both kind of ran into some things, but I'm just going to reach all this text that Dylan.
I ran into depression and borderline alcoholism.
Dylan texted me, I don't know if I can do it tonight. I'm not sure I'm in the right headspace at this point. I would probably go buy a pint of Fireball, finish half of it, pour a beer, and then record. So we just decided to push it. I also felt sick yesterday and slept half the day, so let's get into Newcastle-Liverpool, game that started so brightly for Newcastle at home. They are very tough to play against. There were some questionable tactics from Klopp, in my opinion, to start the match. Liverpool has such an abundance of technical players that can really control a game if they want to, and especially going into St. James, I would have thought
St. James's. But yeah,
St. James's, excuse me. I would have thought he'd utilize tactics to kind of control the play more, but he really let Newcastle dictate pretty much everything in the first half. Dylan, as you're watching that first half unfolds, what are we thinking?
Yeah. So you want my full experience and full disclosure with maybe a little TMI?
Just go up until the Virgil van Dijk send off.
So, full disclosure, I really had to go to the bathroom in like the 20-something minute. So I went in the bathroom. I'm watching it on my phone. Anthony Gordon gets that goal off of a fluke Trent Alexander-Arnold mishap. So at that point, I'm like,
that's putting it
at that point, I'm like, I can't leave the bathroom. Like, we just scored. Like, I'm not superstitious, but I'm a little stitious. So I'm like, I can't leave the bathroom. And then Virgil van Dijk gets a red card, still sitting in the bathroom because I'm not moving. And at that point, I'm like, all right, I'm safe to get out now. Like, we're good. We're up a man. We're up a goal. We're looking like a top 4 side. We're looking like a Champions League side. Truly imposed our will in every facet of the game on Liverpool in that first 35 minutes. The Van Dijk sending off, I think, was completely warranted. I know you had some questionable thoughts on it. I think Isak was clear by him. And the only thing keeping Isak from a clear goal-scoring opportunity was a foul, therefore a red card.
Yeah, I've come around on it. I agree.
So I think it was a clear red. It feels weird saying that on Van Dijk because he doesn't get red cards in the Premier League.
Yeah,
especially after his move to Liverpool. So one of the better defenders of all time, Isak took a very nice ball and had him beat, and he was fouled, and it was a red card. It was a good call. So at that point in the game, we were imposing our will on them. And from literally that point on, a lot of Newcastle fans say it was from halftime on. But for me, it was from the red card on. We looked a different side. We looked content with a 1-0 lead. We were imposing our will against them 11 on 11 and kind of sat on our laurels a bit. I think it was probably about the 60th minute. It was right before our changes, I think. I said something to you in a text. It's like, this isn't enough. Like, we've played Liverpool too close the last couple of years since we've become relevant again. It just felt like the other shoe was going to drop because we weren't imposing our will as much as we were with 11 men as we were against 10 men. So there was a lot of concern there for me. Certainly some missed opportunities. Elmiron hit a post on a beautiful strike. It just hit a post. It is what it is. No fault against him. But then he missed a clear scoring opportunity in the box. He probably put it as high above the bar as the bar is high above the ground. So he probably missed it, the net twofold. And there were a couple of other chances in that that early second half that really felt like we needed to capitalize. And then the most talked about thing on Newcastle Twitter, the most important thing in my mind, were the changes Eddie Howe made, bringing off Tonali specifically.
Yep, got that at the top of my
I
notes.
I don't like bringing off Gordon, but really bringing off Tonali was the biggest thing for me. He was, for lack of a better term, dominating a Liverpool midfield that is going to be their weakness at this point. They did not get the number 6 they desired. Soboslai was a fantastic signing. McAllister was a great signing at value. But when you're playing against a side like Liverpool and you do have your midfield dominating like that, taking him off, who is kind of our catalyst, was a huge mistake in my eyes. Eddie Howe is notorious for slowly bringing in foreign league players. So I think a lot of it was honestly predetermined. A lot of it was probably him getting a little too comfortable where the game was at. It was probably an opportunity where he saw, I can take this as a chance to bring Tonali off, to kind of ease him into the Premier League still a little bit. We have a 1-goal lead with a man advantage, but I think it really did come to bite him in the rear end. I don't think it is something that he would necessarily do different, because he is so positively set in his ways. He has a game plan with players that he brings in, and he knows exactly what he's doing. It felt like a predetermined sub. I think he fully would back that predetermined sub. I haven't had a chance to listen to his press conference from the day after the match yet, but I have a feeling it's something that he would stand by because it is just his philosophy. But I do think that is certainly where things started to unravel for Newcastle. But a huge prop to Jurgen Klopp. I don't like saying that, as many listeners, and I cannot stand Jurgen Klopp for his antics, but he is a very, very good football manager. Both of us were kind of surprised that he left Darwin on the bench for so long, because he seemed like a guy that fit the style that you would want to play down a man. And I think we really saw that come to fruition when they did bring him on, and he played phenomenally. He had some clinical finishing we haven't necessarily seen, and I've seen a lot of Newcastle fans kind of leaning back on that as a crutch. Normally he doesn't finish that. Okay, but we gave him the chance twice to finish that. And he, at the end of the day, is an $85 million striker. He is supposed to finish those. Whether he did last year or not, it's something Liverpool and soccer fans would expect him to finish at least one of the two. And he was able to finish on both of them. So I think it is a really hard lick your wounds and move on, but I'm really trying to not get too down on it. Our first 4 fixtures are against European sides. If somehow we are able to go into Brighton and steal, in my opinion at this point, steal 3 points, I think looking back on the first 4 fixtures, 6 out of 4 matches, considering who we played, is something that you tell me we get that at the beginning of the year. I don't love it, but I take it. So I think it really hinges on that Brighton game. If we go in there and get any points, it's okay, we could have done better, but at least we have 4 points against 4 European sides. But if we go down to the Amex and don't even get a point, I think there is a little worry starting to set in. And with the fan base, there's already worry starting to set in. For me, I'm very cognizant of the fact that we've played 4 European sides, and it will get easier as far as fixtures go. But it feels like a huge opportunity missed for Newcastle, certainly being up a man, up a goal against Liverpool at home.
To miss out on any points from that match it's pretty devastating. Like you said,
I had some Arsenal fans trying to compare it to them dropping some points this weekend, and we'll go into their game a little bit, but I'm like, I don't want to hear it. At least you guys came away with, they should have come away with more, but at least you came away with something. And in the Premier League, as thick as it is, as we talked about, as thick as that competition is, just getting points in every possible game is so important. Coming away with absolutely nothing from that match is a huge letdown.
Yeah. Basically what Liverpool subs did once they went to 10 men, they essentially narrowed the pitch. They kind of went into a 4-2-2-1, and basically outnumbered you guys in the midfield. And if Tonali was still on, as opposed to Longstaff, I think you could have had a lot more success limiting those opportunities. Mo Salah kind of roamed across the field at that point, him and Jota, and then Elliott and I think it was McAllister perhaps, kind of sat back and facilitated. And Nunez was able to make his runs past what ended up being Dan Burn as a left center back, right center back. What did he come in at? Left center
Left
back?
center back, which
Yeah.
which is a little. So I want to kind of talk about Dan Burn and that left center back position a little bit, because that is his position by trade. But so a lot of Newcastle fans are saying, "Whoa, he looked abysmal. He can't be our backup left center back." At this point, we've signed Lewis Hall. We have Matt Target. Like, we have other left back options. So I think long term, Dan Burn is more of a backup left center back for Botman. And people were very discouraged by the performance we saw from him. It is tough, though, when you've been playing left back for a year, to, in the middle of the game, you didn't expect to have to go play center back, to go play center back against Darwin Nunez. And Darwin has been, I've always been a Darwin sympathizer, if you will. Last year, I talked almost ad nauseum about the chances he put himself into and just wasn't finishing. And granted, that is part of being a striker, but he puts himself in fantastic positions. And it's something I flat out don't think Dan Burn at center back was ready for, because it's just not something that he's used to having to play against. So I am much more cautiously optimistic as Dan Burn as a backup left center back than a lot of Newcastle fans right now, because of the position he was kind of put in was very difficult. You're going against an $85 million striker on incredibly fresh legs and an incredibly intense environment, and he got burned. I mean, it is what it is. He got burned on that goal, but it's a position he's not used to playing at this point in time. So I'm still high on him as a backup left center back, or a can't believe I'm saying this, or as a left back. I'm officially on the Dan Burn can play left back train, which feels wild compared to where I was at this time last year. But I do give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, and I think a lot of it was Klopp's really nice strategic play in that second half, where Eddie just didn't seem up to snuff in comparison to Klopp.
Yeah, the last thought I have on this is, you're trying to add a second goal, you're trying to put Liverpool away. This is the exact moment where you're missing a creative midfielder.
A James Maddison, if you will.
If you will, yeah, or Lewis Paqueta, somebody like that to facilitate that. Because, you get Gordon and Almiron so wide outside, and it really isolates Trent. And then Robertson's a decent defender, but if you have them out so wide, it really does create a lot of space in the middle that Guimaraes just isn't quite creative enough to capitalize on. So big missed opportunity. Go ahead.
That whole Guimaraes point kind of harkens back to something I was saying all transfer window. People were so gung-ho on Newcastle getting a 6, so Guimaraes can have a little bit more offensive responsibility. And I said all second half of last year, I don't know if I believe in him. I mean, he's never going to be a number 10, but as like a creative offensive midfielder, I just never saw that in him. And I think it really showed once Tonali came off the pitch. He was asked to do a little bit more of that creative, and he seemed a little bit in over his head, if you will. And it's a position where I think in the future it's something we'll address. I would love to see a midfield of Bruno, Tonali, and a true attacking midfielder. And I think that really showed, especially down a man. We really should have been able to capitalize, and I just don't think Bruno has that in him at this point. And not that I don't like Bruno. I've cooled on him a little bit from where I was at this time last year, but I just think we kind of need to realize what he is and what our expectations are for him moving forward.
Yeah. Let's move on to West Ham and Brighton. And this is an interesting game. I don't have a whole lot to say about it. Dylan, I don't know if you have SofaScore pulled up, but I am going to put these graphics, or have you put these graphics in the video. I want you to look at the average positions for the Brighton players versus the West Ham players. The average positioning for the Brighton defenders, both defenders were on the offensive side of the halfway line. So high up. The stats show this game, expected goals was 3.23 for West Ham. However, their possession was 22%, which is unbelievable. It just goes to show they got burned on the backside.
In the first half, West Ham was up, I believe, 1-0. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe Brighton didn't score until the second half. Yeah, late in the
Yeah.
second half.
Yep.
Pascal Gross. They had 13 completed passes in the first half. West Ham. 13 completed passes, and they were up 1-0 and 1-3-1. So that tells me a couple of things when it comes to Brighton. You can beat them on the counter, which as a Newcastle fan going into the weekend, seeing what Gordon did on Trent Alexander-Arnold, granted, most fullbacks are better defensively than him, but there is room to get in behind Brighton.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a lot of weaknesses in Brighton. I think we're both this is probably one of the most pro Brighton podcasts on YouTube. But if there is a way to beat Brighton, it seems to be let them possess and beat them over the top. And that's something Newcastle was very comfortable doing last year. And it does give me hope. And it does give me a little concern for Brighton because we were super high on them. They won combined 8-2 in their first two matches, but they played Luton and Wolves? Wolves, who was on a red. Yeah, they played Luton and Wolves, who got a red last week. So yeah, 8-2 looks great. You got to take care of business against the lower third team, but like they're lower third teams. They played a team, in my opinion, that is threatening for a top 10-7 range this season, and they got burned by it. So I do think it's something to note. I'm not out on Brighton at this point, but
Yeah.
it was certainly concerning and certainly something that caught me by surprise, at least.
Definitely. My third game of the weekend. Oh wait, were we gonna talk about something else before the Arsenal game?
Sure, we can. Because mine's going to kind of transition into Arsenal. My
Right.
hot take of the week. I'm going to try and do at least one of these every week, and I don't know how hot of a take this is, but Chelsea was not the problem for Havertz and Mount. Like it just wasn't. They were part of Chelsea's problem. And granted, as much like I just said, Brighton has played some lower sided teams. So did Chelsea on Friday. But asking Havertz to play left central midfield for 35 minutes, if that's what you brought him in for at Arsenal, you're in for a rude awakening. He was not up to it. As soon as Vieira came on, the whole game changed in Arsenal's favor. They were getting bodied by Fulham at points in that first 65 minutes. And as soon as they brought Vieira on, the whole game flipped the switch. So I would be very interested to see in what kind of role Kai Havertz plays. We've seen similar issues with Man United not being able to score and Mount being at some of the center of that. But I think there were a lot of Chelsea fans that were like, oh my God, we got rid of this dead weight for all of this money. And a lot of us went, I'm pretty sure Chelsea was the problem. These guys are going to flourish on a good side, and they're not flourishing right now. I don't know if it's a poor use by Arteta or what it might be, but I think a lot of it has to do with those two guys might not be as good as their fees indicate. Again, we're only 3 weeks in. The verdict is still out, but I was pretty surprised to see Kai Havertz playing that kind of central midfield position and not succeeding at it at all, and seeing how well a guy like Fabio Vieira was able to succeed in that role in his place when he was subbed on.
Yeah, that's a good segue into what I was going to talk about. With Arsenal, I think that they're going to have a lot of issues. We even talked about it kind of before the season. Was Arteta going to make things too complicated, too intricate? I'm going to reference SofaScore again and have you look at the average positioning of Trossard and Havertz. Their heat maps are exactly the same, like almost exactly the same.
Right.
They were in the exact, and they had Trossard playing as the 9 up top, kind of a drop back 9 because he's not really a poacher or anything like that, but same positioning. I mean, Kai Havertz, I've never liked Kai Havertz as a player. I don't think he's a $65 million player on any team, anywhere, any time frame. But they're going to fit. It feels like Arteta's forcing Havertz into this situation, maybe because of how much they spent on him, maybe because he really believes in him. But it's just not. I don't think it's going to work in this system. You see the same thing with Mount and Eriksen and Fernandez playing together. They just don't work together. You can't have Mount and Fernandez on at the same time. Casemiro, he's always going to play that 6, but Eriksen, Mount, and Fernandez, they just get too bottled up into the same places. It limits their creativity. It limits their ability to get back. Obviously, you want Fernandez up there because he's been, unfortunately, one of the best creators in the Premier League over the last 2 years. However, with both of those ex-Chelsea players, they just don't necessarily fit in right now to what those teams are trying to do.
Yeah, Havertz needs to play where Martinelli is, and you're not taking Martinelli out of this Arsenal lineup. So it's like, I have, all right, so I said I'm only coming in with one hot take, but I got another. Nobody's sniffing City this year. Like, it was Arsenal, in my opinion. It was Arsenal, it was United. I know I had said it was Villa, but that was kind of a hot take, trying to get some clicks, if you will. But I just don't see Arsenal really threatening. Man U clearly isn't threatening. I think there's a lot. Again, we're 3 weeks in. A lot can change. But what I've seen from Arsenal right now, they're just not ready to compete with City. They have the talent, but it seems like there's a lot of stuff that needs to get worked out in those formations and those tactics. If you are going to incorporate Havertz, otherwise you got a $65 million super sub on your bench, and like, that's cool, I guess, but like, I don't know if Arsenal was in a place to spend, $185 million on a backup winger and Declan Rice. Like, there's just, I feel like the money could have been better spent if you're Arsenal, if that is all Havertz is going to be. And from last week alone, I haven't watched every single minute of every Arsenal game, to be fair, but from last week alone, like, Havertz is not gonna work in that left central mid spot.
Yeah, with Arsenal, here's the deal. I said it last year. I don't think Jesus is good enough. I don't think he's going to score enough goals. I don't think Havertz playing at the 9 is going to score enough goals. I don't know why they're not giving Balogun a chance to take that Arsenal role. However, Tottenham's midfield's gotten better. Newcastle's midfield's gotten better. Villa's midfield's gotten better. Brighton's midfield has reloaded probably again. Arsenal's midfield isn't going to dominate the same way they dominated last year, especially,
which is crazy because they spent $110 million on the midfielder in the market. And I agree, though. Like, unless Rice is going to get more creative and Havertz is going to like drop, like, I just don't see anywhere that Arsenal really truly improved this year. Granted, Declan Rice is an upgrade on Partey, without a doubt. It allows him to go play left back when they need him. But I don't see a spot on that field in their first 3 matches where I go, holy cow, they are significantly better than they were last year. I think the Partey Xhaka kind of combo there in the holding midfield worked really well last year, and it just kind of hit right, and it worked for Arteta. And I just don't know if this new midfield works for them. And again, it's early, but yeah, I'm not super sold on Arsenal at this point. I mean, yeah, it's a weird season thus far already. It kind of stinks because it feels like it's just setting up for another City runaway. Unless, I know you're really high on Spurs, but let's be honest, you're not competing with City yet. So
I don't.
It feels like a year we talked so much about parity all off season, and 3 weeks in, I'm like, well, let's give it to City.
Hey, there's a lot of parity. Now. There's a lot of parity 2-8. But
there is. I thought there was going to be more parity in that, like, 4-1 this year than we had seen in the past, and we're just getting proved that Pep knows what he's doing, City knows what they're doing thus far, and I'm a little skeptical on Arsenal or United or Villa or Newcastle or Spurs competing, really.
My last thought on Arsenal, and it's not even really a thought, it's a funny stat. 3 out of Arsenal's last 9 Premier League games, they have conceded in the first minute of the game.
What?
That's a fact, Jack.
That doesn't seem real.
It's a fact.
That doesn't seem real.
I don't know if it's complacency or what, but it's a weird stat.
3 out of 9. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
What else? See a couple of those a year, I feel like.
I know.
Yeah. So the only other
from the Prem.
The other couple things I got, Raheem Sterling is back, man. The dude
against Luton.
Again, I understand. He looked very good in their first 2 as well, but like, he looks back, and it's something that He's a guy that it feels like maybe Chelsea was holding him back. Maybe the manager situation, the team situation was holding him back, like people thought was the case with Havertz and Mount. But he's looked phenomenal. I don't have much more than he fully dominated the game. And I understand it's Luton. I understand it's a side we expect to get relegated, but it's really hard to like truly dominate a game as a winger in the Premier League. It flat out is. Against anybody you're playing, it's hard. Like as much as you and I love Grealish, as much as I love the idea of Anthony Gordon, Boss, and Trent Alexander-Arnold all over the pitch, like it's very uncommon to see a winger dominate the way Sterling did against Luton, and he had some success in those first two matches. So I think it's a guy that we kind of wrote off a little bit for Chelsea. Not because of injury, so it's not quite the same, but it's kind of similar to Luis at Liverpool. Like Diaz, not Luis. Thank you. Diaz at Liverpool.
But that's his first name, so technically you were right.
It's a guy they're getting back almost. It's like that was a huge thing for me this year for Liverpool was their window wasn't great, but they're getting guys back off of injury. This almost feels like a guy Chelsea's getting back off of injury. He battled with injuries a little bit last year, but I think he was just out of form, out of place in that system, and we're really seeing him flourish into what Chelsea thought he would be, could be, and should be.
Yeah.
So as much as I hate to give Chelsea props to Chelsea, Sterling has looked phenomenal this year so far.
He has, and the battle of me and Dylan's relegation picks went to round 1 this weekend, and Wolves got the win over Everton. So Dylan's well on his way.
Double bounce is coming.
Yeah, Dylan's well on his way to winning that bet. But it is only
Villa looked pretty good too. Villa's looked good, bouncing back after a little 5-1 loss at St. James's, but Villa's looked solid too. Yep. So we'll see. I do think Villa, the 5-1, I think after our week 1, I kind of joked about Emery, like, oh yeah, like we looked really good. It's like you can't look good in a 5-1, but like I think all of his points were valid, and everything we have kind of seen it come to fruition. And transitioning into my absolute last point, Newcastle should really probably hire me as a recruitment guy or a scouting guy, because my 2 number 1 signings desired signings this offseason have looked phenomenal. Diaby and Maddison have looked pure class on their new teams. Maddison dominated the midfield this week. Diaby was torching guys. They look every bit what I think Newcastle should have paid for them. I get we have financial restrictions and all of that, but like
which they talk about a lot in that Amazon show.
Yeah,
I mean it's
real. It's real.
About, yeah.
Hey, it's real, and I do think there's a slight chance the distrust in me is going, well, they're saying this stuff, so if they do get investigated, they can go, well, we told you we were trying, type of thing. But I just would love to picture a Newcastle side with either Diaby in the right wing in replace of Almiron, solves a lot of problems, or James Maddison playing with Tonali and Bruno solves a lot of problems. I get there's financial restrictions, but those were my 2 guys going into the window, and looks like they are. They weren't exactly
hidden gems, though.
No. Right. So that like scouting, maybe not, but like recruitment, like those are the guys I wanted going into the window. I made it very known on here on Twitter. So it is a little refreshing as somebody newer into the pundit analytical side to see the guys I was picking succeed, but it also really hurts that we don't have them, because we would be class with either of them. But it is what it is, and I think it's going to be a long road for Newcastle, if I'm being completely honest. After this week, that shook me up a little bit. I was as pleased as you can be with a 1-0 loss at City, and not to spend too much more time on Newcastle, but man, I think it was the Klopp too. Like, God,
yeah.
Even if that photo of him doing the shush was photoshopped. Have you seen that photo?
I have. It was photoshopped?
Yes, it was
Okay.
photoshopped. There's a little like photo, like the guy who edited it. It's on the jacket of the assistant coach in the background. And if you actually look,
Mm.
like his arm is like this long.
It does. It looks
So
weird, but I didn't think
it,
it was
it looks
Photoshop
weird, and
because
yeah,
it's something
it's come
Klopp
out
would
that it's
do.
right, exactly. It was so believable, and when I wish, honestly, I wish it was real. I hate
Yeah.
Klopp, but like, I couldn't say anything. You got an assistant coach shushing you, and then you shush after a 93rd minute winner. I wish it was real, but alas, it wasn't. Newcastle is down in freaking 12th place or whatever we're sitting in. Got to go to another European side this week, so
It could
here
all
I
change.
am.
It could all change real
You can
fast
tell
for
it
you
was
guys.
rough. I haven't shaved my neck beard. It's been a long couple of days. I'm in the weeds, man. That was tough. It was tough.
Well, week 3's over. Week 4 is a new sunshine, new day.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. So we appreciate you guys watching, listening. As always, make sure to comment. We got a lot of comments on our messy video. Just want to give like a general shout. Americans, like, it's not like it's illegal for us to know the sport. We've gotten a lot of comments about that. I was expecting it, but like, we also can watch the games and read books and listen to pundits and understand the game. So fuck all of you who don't think we can honestly. So yeah.
Amen.
Anyways,
Shout out to DCFC. Huge win over the weekend. We're back in a playoff spot. Had to give a shout out.
there you go.
I had to find something good on the weekend in soccer because the rest of it was tough for me. So DCFC, baby.
There you go. We'll talk to you guys later this week. Peace.